my place. So take a step back before I get all up in your
remember, because I don't remember. I remember every bit of this.
You're the dudes holding on the phone line. Your voice will be heard, sir.
Next caller, please.
Jerry's gonna get him.
Fantasy sports and politics. Fantasy sports and politics. Fantasy sports and politics. Fantasy sports and politics.
Listeners are asking questions about this week's games, not Jerry's personal beef. So what's your thought?
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to Fantasy Sports and Politics. It's me, it's Mr. FSP, doing what I do because I do it for you all day, every day. It's Sunday, August 17th. That means NFL regular season games are 14 days away. No, 17 more days away. The first game is the 4th of September. And that, my friends, is very, very interesting. On today's show, we're going to discuss a topic that I've gotten pretty good at. I'm going to say pretty good because I'm not the expert, although I don't think anybody is the expert, really. It's just my thought process based on a PPR fantasy football format. Let me be clear when I say this. All of my rankings offensively are PPR related, points per reception. I don't deal with traditional leagues that much. And the reason being is everybody likes a lot of numbers, big numbers, right? In fantasy football, in the archaic days when I was first playing, like in 93, 94, traditional scoring was fun because you got to play against somebody and, you know, your wits of drafting players versus their wits. But the scoring sucked because you could be down like 3 points or 4 points, and you had your defense going, or you had your tight end going, somebody that wasn't going to get a lot of points unless it was a touchdown. Now, defense was going to give you probably 3 or 4 if they got a shutout, right? Touchdowns were the main focus of fantasy football back in the day. Touchdowns. And with the shift of the NFL going from the power back play, where, okay, you get this power back, or somebody gets a lot of touchdowns, you're great. But if you get somebody that had a lot of receptions and yards, but no touchdowns, they'd be like, man, that's a waste because I'm not getting many points. You get 1 point for every, 20 yards receiving or 25 yards receiving. That means you had 4 points if they got 100 yards receiving. It needed to evolve. And when points per reception leagues began, people were like, oh, no, it's too many points. It keeps it interesting because you can go into a Monday night game down 10 points and still have a legit shot at winning the game. Whether it's your running back, your receiver, your tight end. We'll get into, I already talked about the IDPs, but we'll talk about defenses at some point. Team defenses. We'll get to that actually next Saturday. Team defenses. But you got to look at all these things. You got to, and just say, points per reception leagues are probably the place to stay right now in fantasy football. And I'm noticing a trend where if you play in a PPR in a league that allows you to play multiple teams during that week, you can, have a different outcome for your record. I think that's probably the next trend. I don't know if that's going to stick unless you're in a division, well, in a league where it's divisional play and you don't necessarily play everybody. Prime example, if you're in a 12-person league and uh, you have to play your division opponents twice. So let's say there are 3 divisions, 4 teams in each. That means 6 of those 14 games are most assuredly going to be against your division opponents. You can play someone else one more time. Then you got 2 extra games, week 14. So you play another person or 2 teams twice. Why not play everybody? Right? So a lot of teams or a lot of leagues have gone to just one division where you just play everybody and then it just resets, which is fine. I'm doing that right now in my league, but I plan to go back to the 3 to 4 team divisions in a 12-team league. If I do 14 teams, which would be hectic, uh, I'll do 2 divisions and 7 people making it to the playoffs. Each division winner and 5 others. So that's my intent. However, I say all this to say in fantasy football, in the beginning, it was all about the running back. I recall my first ever draft, and I had the first overall pick. Now, I played when people use newspapers that way and stuff like that, and through the magazines. But my first online experience was the ESPN League, and I had the #1 overall pick. And at the time, Barry Sanders and Steve Young were the hottest things smoking. My brain said, regardless of what I read and what I heard, my brain said Steve Young has more opportunities to make more plays than Barry Sanders. Why? He runs and he throws the ball. Touchdowns were still 6 points, whatever. But Detroit had Scott Mitchell at quarterback, Herman Moore at receiver, Barry Sanders and at running back, and Perryman, the other wide receiver. But I said Steve Young has Jerry Rice. All I needed. So I picked Steve Young over Barry Sanders, #1. Wouldn't you know it, game 1 versus the Arizona Cardinals, Aeneas Williams knocks him out. Ends my season first game of the year. Concussion protocol. Didn't even have a protocol back then. But Steve Young was done. I think he retired shortly thereafter. But the running back was the better play back then. Nowadays, anybody can be the #1 overall pick in fantasy football. Again, I said Jamar Chase is the #1 fantasy football draft pick this year, in my opinion. If I had the #1 pick, that's what I'm getting. I'm getting him over all the other players. Then the question becomes, is there another receiver worth #2? Or another player worth #2? In a PPR, points per reception league, yes, another receiver could be #2. Let's think about this. CeeDee Lamb has Dak Prescott back. That's a big, big thing. Can a running back be #2 or #1? Of course. There are about 5 or 6 running backs that legit can be #1 overall pick, depending on your league. Look at your league settings. But then I get to the quarterbacks. If you're in a league where the quarterback gets points for running the ball, because normally that's what happens in PPR. They get touches, right? Running or catching the ball. The quarterback becomes a number one overall pick and most coveted. Why? If you look at any fantasy football rankings, the limited amount of people that you have in a category says how much value they are. Prime example, there are 32 quarterbacks in the NFL, right? Starting quarterbacks. There are 12 teams in a league, maybe more. You're going to find 12 quality quarterbacks to be a starter. So some people wait. You're not going to find 12 legit number one running backs. They might be your first pick. I mean, your first running back, but to put up the numbers that you want, probably not. A quarterback that is mobile provides you more now than it did when I drafted Steve Young over Barry Sanders. Think about that. Okay. When you see a Josh Allen sitting there, when you see a Lamar Jackson, a Jalen Hurts, right? When you see a Jaden Daniels, a rookie, sitting there, last year was a rookie. That gives you pause. Because not only are they mobile, but they can throw the ball too. And quarterbacks generally score more fantasy points than running backs. It's just a fact, especially in PPR leagues. But the value of that running back, because there aren't really 12 solid guys you want as your number one back, is the problem. And that's why so many people jump on them quick. They're like, I'll get a quarterback later. I'm going to do quarterbacks next week, and I'll prove it to you. I'll prove it to you. But this week, running backs are on the menu. So with that being said, it's time to play a little music. We're going to be night driving right now. Right? And I'm going to reveal, and I welcome you to add your comments to the conversation. I have no problem with that. I want to enjoy the conversation. But I'm going to bring up my 15 through 10. And we'll talk about it. Because for me, when I'm going into my fantasy drafts, I have one today, as a matter of fact. It's I think it's my only free fantasy league I play in. I don't play in free leagues unless I'm running them. And this one, I've been in it for about, almost 10 years because I like what they do. They have a breakdown of IDPs for every position. So you have to know a good defensive lineman, a good linebacker, a good, DB, right? Hence why I do my breakdowns of those IDPs. I love the concept, right? And the commission's pretty cool. So, with that being said, let's jump right into this 15 through 10 fantasy running backs. At number 15, some people have this guy, not me. Some people have this guy a lot higher than when I have him. Last year, he finished running back 12. So it wasn't as bad as, me or others thought. He played 16 games, didn't play the last game of the season. He had 201 fantasy points. He ran the ball 229 times. Remember, in a PPR, that's a half a point or it's a full point, however you want to look at it, right? He had 990 yards, 7 touchdowns. And in the receiving game, he had 65 targets, 54 receptions for 306 yards, and an additional 4 touchdowns. A total of 11 touchdowns and a total of 1,300 plus yards. And he's my number running back 15. I'm going to tell you why. Because of the studs on the outside. Now, last year, same studs were on the outside and he did these numbers. Something telling me those studs on the outside are going to cook even more. Because they're going to have to. Because their defense is not going to be showing up. My number 15, Chase Brown, Cincinnati Bengals. In my league, and I believe I have it in this book. If not, I got it in my black book. No, it's in this book. In my league, Chase Brown was kept. The person that kept him only lost an 11th round pick. 11th round for Chase Brown is criminal. Criminal. But that's not the biggest criminal case I have in my league. Meaning, he stole Chase Brown, a top 15 fantasy back. But remember, only 12 teams in this league. So did he really get a number 1 running back? I don't know. Let's go to my number 14 back. This guy, he does not stay healthy. Last year he finished running back 29. Remember, there are 32 teams. Several of them use multiple backs, but he finished running back 29. I think he's going to try to stay healthy. Why? It's a contract year, and there are a bunch of studs sitting behind him. Oh my God, this preseason, I've seen these guys just going crazy. Last year, this guy only played 11 games, had 135.2 fantasy points, rushed the ball 153 times, had 573 yards, 7 rushing touchdowns. He had 53 targets in the passing game, caught 46. It's a very good ratio. But it's only 299 yards and 1 receiving touchdown. Total of 8 touchdowns and roughly 873, 72 yards. But he did that in 11 games. I really think he's going to stay healthy because he does not want to share the ball with Zach Charbonnet or those other 2 beast backs that the Seattle Seahawks have. I'm talking about Kenneth Walker III. I only put him above Chase Brown for the mere fact that that's going to be a run-heavy team. Chase Brown is going to be more effective in the passing game as well as the running game for the Bengals. Obviously more than Kenneth Walker, but they've changed coordinators in Seattle. They're going to pound the rock. They have a monster fullback as well. So Kenneth Walker's going to get a lot of opportunities, but can he stay healthy is the question. Right now, Kenneth Walker is my number 14. And I welcome you guys to post your comments if you want. I'm not afraid of a little, competition. Say what you're going to say. Do what you're going to do. My number 13 back is a guy who he had a problem holding on to the ball. Right? But last year he finished running back number 7. Awesome, right? Awesome sauce. In a system where passing the ball is more prevalent than running the ball, but he wasn't a big recipient of a lot of passes. Last year, he had 234.7 fantasy points. In 16 games, he ran the ball 207 times. Crazy ratio right here. 207 times for 1,009 yards, 16 touchdowns. 38 targets, 32 receptions. That's a lot of screens. 258 yards and 2 receiving touchdowns for a total of touchdowns, only behind the person that scored the most touchdowns. We'll get to that by a little bit. Roughly, what? 1,265 yards total. We're going to circle the wagons. We're going to jump on some tables. We're going to say, how about them Bills? James Cook is my number 13. Now, James Cook wants this contract, and I think they're still working on it. Billy Beane is notorious for not being somebody that pays. When he's with the Oakland Athletics, fielded great teams at very low prices. He's trying to do the same thing in the NFL. Baseball and football are totally different, right? They pay more in baseball, true, right? But for quality in football at these positions, you got to pay. I like James Cook coming out of Florida State a while ago. He's turned into a very good running back. Is he the back you want as your number one back, though? Knowing that Ty Johnson or whoever else is over there is going to be the bulk of those receiving passes from Josh Allen. And they didn't make it easy for him. They brought in other running backs that can make the team because they'll play special teams as well and be the backup. But Cook's 16 touchdowns cannot be ignored, right? He only had 207 rushes. 16 of those ended up in the end zone. I think he's going to get a little bit more. But again, is that who you want as your number one running back? He's my running back 13. Now, let's get into, if you're in a 12-person league and everybody has one starter that's a beast. Now, I put this guy here. Some people have a little higher, right? I don't. Because even though he's the starter going in, he too had a few fumbling issues towards the end of the season. He is the better back. And in my league, one of my best friends in life, Van, actually kept him, but he was never drafted. So he goes to the final pick in this draft for Van. So that's like pick 260 something. You're getting a top 12, pretty much your number one back with the 261 pick, and he's going to be productive. Last year, this guy finished running back 17. This year, I think he's going to finish a little higher, right? He split time, a lot of time. He only had 197.4 fantasy points in 17 games. Again, another 207 rushing attempts, but he had 1,122 rushing yards, 8 touchdowns. More importantly, he was involved in the passing game. Remember, PPRs, 52 targets, 47 catches, 392 yards for 0 touchdowns. So Baker Mayfield didn't throw any one of those 41 touchdowns he threw to Bucky Irving. That's who I have. But he gave it to him 207 times while splitting time with White. I expect Bucky Irving to be in the 250 range, if not more, this year. 250 is just 2 more games where he's the starter. I mean, I can go over how many times he toted the ball. There was like games 1 through 5, the highest amount he rushed in a single game was 10 times, right? Games 1 through 12, the highest rushing amount in one game was 14. Then they started giving the ball versus Carolina 25 times, 152 yards. For some reason, versus the Vegas Raiders, they only gave him the ball 4 times. they were inconsistent. But he also had a couple of fumbles during that time. But Bucky Irving is my number 12. You see it down there, scrolling at the bottom. Let's take a look. Now, let's get to my number 11. Some people have this guy a lot higher. I don't. The reason why I don't have this guy a lot higher is because I don't like the makeup of his team. There's something going on in the water. Finishing running back 9 last year was great. I don't think he'll finish running back 9 this year. Last year he had 221.9 fantasy points in all 17 games, rushed the ball 203 times, 907 rushing yards, 6 rushing touchdowns. But again, we're in a PPR. So the value of this guy makes him somebody you want possibly as your number 1. 87 targets in the passing game. He caught 78 of them for 592 yards and 6 receiving touchdowns. So he had a total of 12 touchdowns and freaking 1,499 total yards. But I don't think that's going to happen again this year. I'm talking about Devin Achane. I like him, but I don't like him as my starting running back because of where he's at. If you get him great. But think about what Miami's going through right now. There's something wrong in the water down there. I don't know what it is, but it is definitely not so far. I know it's preseason, but so far, it's not looking good. That's my 15 through 11. So let's get to our top 10. Where you want to go, where you want to be. My top 10, I start off with a rookie. Yes, I didn't put a rookie in my tight ends. I'm not that foolish. The reason why I say I'm not that foolish is because you can't expect every tight end to behave like Brock Bowers did last year. You cannot. I don't care what program they came from. It's where they're at now. And the 2-star tight ends, Warren and Loveland, went to places that may or may not use them effectively. One's Chicago. He might get used. He might get used a lot, but I don't know how impactful it'll be. Warren in Indianapolis, I'm not knocking his talent. I'm knocking the talent around him. It's either going to be Danny Dimes or Richardson. If it's Dimes, he's got a shot. If it's Richardson, he might have a shot, but it might not be for a lot. But in my football rankings, I have a few rookies in my top 10, as you can tell. But this guy, I wasn't a believer until I actually took a look and saw what he could do. So there are no stats for him. But here's what you have. You have a team that's run first, run often, and until they lost at tackle, I was putting them as the number 2 best running offensive line, or number 3 best number 3 offensive line in the NFL to run behind. Coupled with the fact that Najee Harris hasn't done anything, and we haven't gotten an update. Amarian Hampton, yeah. It's ironic that Amari Hampton is in the same division as Gentry, and they're going to go against each other. But I've got Hampton at number 10 because I think they're going to pound him and other teams into submission. He's got great balance. He's got power. Can he catch the ball? He split time in college, right? So he's pretty much healthy. Because Harbaugh's going to run that boy into the dirt. You're going to run him into the dirt. That's good for you as a fantasy owner because you can expect 250 plus rushing attempts. Now, in a PPR, that counts if you get a half a point or a point, as I said, for a rushing attempt. But in the passing game, that's where you got to see if they're going to get him the ball. Devin Chain had 80-something targets. Crazy. For a running back? I don't think Amarian Hampton's going to get that. But I do believe he's going to be a top 10 running back. Okay. Of course, that then leads me to my number 9, Ashton Gentry. Again, a guy that is a rookie coming from Boise State. He was a Heisman candidate runner-up. I don't like that line for the Raiders. But yesterday, against the 49ers, first team defense, he looked pretty good. Now, I'm going to caution you. When I was doing my IDPs, and I mentioned Bosa and all of them, I told you they've got pass rushers. They can't stop the run. So could that game have been misleading? Because when the Raiders played Seattle, -1 yards. Got it. He only ran the ball like 4 times or something like that. But there was no running room. Also, that game versus the Seattle Seahawks, the Raiders did not have their 2 starting guards. They did versus 49ers. Are you taking a risk? In my opinion, I think you are. But are you taking a risk in getting Ashton Gentry in the actual first round of your fantasy playoffs? I mean, of your fantasy draft? I think so. I actually think he needs to fall because there's so much ambiguity around what he is for that team. He's going to pound the rock, no doubt. Pete Carroll's going to run him. But will there be like 5 negative plays before you get a big play like Barry Sanders without the Barry Sanders elusiveness to get those big plays? I'll give you an example. Not even, in these preseason games. Look at what happened to him and Boise State when they went against a better defensive team in the college football playoff. He went nowhere. Nowhere. And the Raiders' offensive line is much like Boise, just okay. But Boise played lackluster competition. Raiders are not playing lackluster competition. They're not. This is why I kind of say Cam Scatterboo was a little better than Gentry, because when he played Notre Dame or Texas, I forget who they played, that man left it all on the field and was everything. But Cam Scatterboo is small, injury-prone little muscle hamster. Remember? We had oh my gosh, he played for the Bears. Called him Muscle Hamster. Can't remember his name off the top of my head, but I caution you, even though he's in my top 10, Aston Genty is not in a position that I'm saying, hey, I got to grab him in the first round. Not when I got all these other players sitting out there. Especially number 8, Kyrie Williams. I get it. Kyrie Williams just signed that contract. I get it. And I get Blake Corum is going to touch the ball a little more. But last year, Kyrie Williams finished running back number 6 and was the power behind that team. Because when Puka and Cup came back, oh my, teams couldn't just put 8 in the box. And Kyrie Williams showed why he deserved that money. Now, did he fumble in the playoff game versus the Eagles? Yes. The Rams should have beat the Eagles, but woulda, coulda, shoulda. It was not too easy. But let's go over Kyrie Williams' numbers, right? And he ran the ball quite a bit. He had 238.1 fantasy points, 316 rushes. 316 rushes. 1,299 rushing yards. 14 rushing touchdowns. 40 targets. 34 caught for only 182 yards. It tells you it's a lot of screen with him. And he had 2 touchdowns. So he had a total of 16 touchdowns and 1,400 total yards. Not bad. Now you got Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua there. Tyler Higbee's at tight end. They're going to try to give the ball to Blake Corum a little more. But 316 rushing attempts tells me he is going to get you what you need in a PPR. Some people might have him, higher than this. Some people have him being drafted in the first round of the fantasy football draft. I don't, but I do have him as a legit number 1 running back for your team. Right? Okay. Let's get to it. So after Kyrie, we'll have it number 8. Number 7, it's kind of an enigma, man. It's no doubting his talent. Not whatsoever. But it's the team he plays for. I already told you that Warren is going to have problems being a major target for the Colts, right? Jonathan Taylor went from being the number 1 overall fantasy running back to, am I going to draft this dude in the first round? To later second round, maybe even third. That's what Richardson has done. He's not good enough to be playing quarterback in the NFL. Meaning, if he could develop his passing game, right, that would make Jonathan Taylor an even bigger threat than what he is. Because the read option RPOs would be out of sight. Places would be open for Jonathan Taylor. Even still, with the quarterback carousel they had last year, with Richardson tabbing out, he still finished running back 10. And last year they gave him the ball 303 times. But it wasn't as good as you wanted to be. He finished with 226.7 fantasy points, 1,431 yards, 11 touchdowns. Very respectable. In the passing game, this is the problem, though. In the passing game, he had 31 targets. That's not the issue. He only had 18 receptions. That's the issue. if you're going to throw the ball to him 31 times, you need that to be like 28 receptions, not 18. He had 136 receiving yards and 1 receiving touchdown. When you're an enigma because of your quarterback play, Jonathan Taylor is your number 1 running back, but he is not worth being drafted in the first round. I would literally, I'm not playing, I would take the number 4 or 5 wide receiver before I take Jonathan Taylor. Right? And last week, I already told you who my guys were. Oh, it's in the other book. It's in the other book. Ah. All right. I'll find my black book. I know where it is. But 303 rushing attempts, 1,431 yards, 11 touchdowns, 18 receptions on 31 targets for 136 yards and 1 touchdown. It's respectable. But compared to what I've already told you about what these other guys have done, that's not number 1 fantasy running back or number 1 first round numbers. But respectable number 1 running back numbers for you. Not me. This next guy was also a keeper in my league. Last year, he finished running back number 5. He comes in on my list as running back number 6. Monster in Green Bay. Monster. He leaves the Raiders and goes to, Green Bay, plays all 17 games, gets 257.1 fantasy points. Outstanding. Rushes the ball 301 times. 1,329 yards rushing. 15 rushing touchdowns. Power bruiser back, man. All those opportunities. And this is what I mean by Jonathan Taylor being an enigma. I take Josh Jacobs, who I'm talking about, over Jonathan Taylor because of this. 43 targets, 36 receptions, 342 receiving yards, and 1 touchdown receiving. That's 16 total touchdowns, almost 1,700 total yards. And Josh Jacobs is not a receiving back, but by these numbers, he's turned into one. And in a PPR, you cannot look past that. You cannot. Now, Green Bay has a buttload of receivers, right? Jordan Love, he had an owie on his left thumb. Should be fine for the opener. But I'm looking for Josh Jacobs to be that guy. And Josh Jacobs was a keeper, like I said, in my other league, or the league I run. And Josh Jacobs was a 3rd round keeper pick. Smart. In my league, you cannot keep a player that was drafted in the 1st and 2nd round. From 3rd on, fair game. Fair game. You just lose that round the following season. So getting Josh Jacobs, who happens to be my number 6 running back in the 3rd round, that's a steal. Absolute steal. But the biggest steal was Bucky Irving, going at 261 overall. Crazy. What a smart game move. But Josh Jacobs is somebody I could see being at the back end of the 1st round. You can't just say boo-hoo to those 301 rushing attempts along with those 36 receptions. That's points without even the yards and the touchdowns. I couldn't. Who knows? You know, maybe, just maybe, somebody, well, it can't because he was a keeper. But this guy, oh my gosh, my number 5 guy. Some people say, why do you have him number 5? He finished running back 70 last year. He was hurt a lot last year, but he's Mr. Everything, especially now in San Francisco. Talking about CMC, Christian McCaffrey. Christian only played 4 games, okay? 4 games last year, 32.8 fantasy points. And to my big homie Hoss, Brent Maynard, who drafted him number 1 overall. And if you followed me last year during the football season, or fantasy football season, Brent had catastrophe after catastrophe after catastrophe after catastrophe. Injury after injury after injury after. I mean, his whole squad was on injury reserve, and started with CMC, who he drafted number 1 overall. Last year, he only had 50 attempts, 202 yards, no touchdowns whatsoever. But in the passing game, 19 targets, 15 of them were caught for 146 yards. See why PPRs, man. He's back healthy. The problem is that dude James that's sitting behind him, not Garindo. Garindo has speed, but Garindo cannot stay healthy. That's why they got that dude James. James is the guy you want to watch out for. You might want to handcuff him. My league, I only allow 4 total running backs on a squad, unless your player is on IR. But in regular leagues, if you draft CMC, you better somehow, some way get James so you can handcuff him. But I believe CMC is going to return to form. Here's why. You have no idea when Brandon Ayuk's coming back. They're talking about week 10. Pierce Hall looks to be the number 1 because Brandon Ayuk, like I said, ain't coming back to week 10. And Pierce Hall's, he looked pretty good. Again, that's against the Raiders. Got a lot of targets. Juwan Jennings had a little nick or whatever, but he's reliable, right? I would get him as a 3rd wide receiver or a flex in certain cases, but not that big of a deal. George Kittle and Jerziak. Those two, I know I'm doing like this, but those two, they're going to be receiving a lot. That's why a lot of people have Kittle number 1 overall as the best tight end, because they know he's going to get a lot of targets. Because of that, I think they're going to double him a lot. Right? So I didn't have number, I think I had number 4, something like that. But CMC will have the same target share as Devin Chain did last year. Something like 88 targets. I seriously am 88 targets. And maybe 250. I don't think he's getting 300 rushes. I don't think he's going to get 300 rushes. Right? But CMC is a guy that you have to put in your top 5 because of what he brings to the table. But you also got to have that with caution and get his handcuffed. Or draft a back that's almost as good as him. Like you get a Marion Hampton or Ashton Genty, right? Because you don't know what they're going to do. But some people are going to get Genty in the 1st round. Not I, says the cat. I don't plan to get Genty in the 1st round. No. But let's move on. CMC was number 5. No comments so far. No comments so far. My number 4, hey, look. There was a dude, and he probably still says this. Because whatever, man. This guy was never washed. Never. Ever. Probably has about 3 good years left in him, thanks to his quarterback. And this is one of my most viewed post on my page about the number 2 finished last year running back in all of fantasy, who, by the way, didn't even play on third downs, but finished running back 2 out of Baltimore, man. Bow down to the king. The king, Derrick Henry, is my number 4 running back. He had 317.4 fantasy points. Played all 17 games. 325 rushing attempts. 1,921 rushing yards. And that wasn't even the best. When you get 1,921 rushing yards, and that's not even the best total, it's insane. 16 rushing touchdowns. Getting involved in the passing game. 22 targets, 19 receptions. Again, this is why I talk about Jonathan Taylor is like an enigma, because when you have 30-something, targets and you only have 18 receptions, either that's on you or it's on the quarterback. But you can't take that chance. Derrick Henry caught the ball 19 times, 193 yards, and 2 of them were for receiving touchdowns. Total of 18 touchdowns, over 2,100 total yards. And his quarterback is Lamar Jackson, who runs the ball. But last year, Lamar threw the ball like a madman, bro. Like a madman. But you know what's going to happen. When Derrick Henry gets the ball 20 times or more, it's a wrap. It's a wrap. It's a wrap. He's my running back number 4. All right. The king. Now, for my number 3. And I ended up keeping Jahmyr Gibbs as my keeper. So I lose my 3rd round pick. Well worth it to get the 3rd best running back in fantasy, a surefire 1st round draft pick. Strategy, guys. It's strategy. If you're in a league like mine, where you don't get to keep 1st or 2nd round picks for the next year, you have to make a decision. Who are you willing to draft in the 1st or 2nd round that's going to help your team and take a risk on not picking up a player like Jahmyr Gibbs into the 3rd round? Now, to be fair, last year we were a 2-quarterback system league. So people rushed after quarterbacks, right? So this year quarterbacks are plentiful. Some got some very skilled positions, but you play the game and you be smart about what you do. In fact, most of the keepers from this year's league came from the 3rd round. Literally. I had Jahmyr Gibbs in the 3rd round. He's the 3rd ranked running back in fantasy last year. Here's why. Even though he split a lot of time, every other series with David Montgomery. Can't forget David Montgomery. He's not in my top 15, though, even though he deserves to be. He does. Last year, 310.9 fantasy points in 17 games. Again, he split time. 250 rushes for 1,412 yards, 16 rushing touchdowns, 63 targets, 52 receptions, 517 receiving yards, 4 receiving touchdowns. $20 total touchdowns. almost 2,000 total yards. And he's running back number 3. Jahmyr Gibbs is, and I said Jamar before, I should have said Jahmyr. When Jahmyr Gibbs was drafted, I was like, is Detroit crazy? They picked him over Bijan? But that's why they're smarter than me. They're the GMs. I would love to be, one of the scouts and in those offices, trying to find players, because I know players. I know quarterbacks, I know receivers, I know DBs a lot better than other positions. But Jahmyr Gibbs was at the time number 2 running back, but he got drafted. Or the first of the 2. Jahmyr Gibbs is a monster. He did that on 250 touches. Ben Johnson is gone, but the system is pretty similar. I expect Montgomery and Gibbs to do the same thing. I really do. I expect Gibbs to get a little bit more. Probably go up to maybe 275 touches. Montgomery's going to get maybe, 200? It's a pretty even split between them because, believe it or not, Detroit runs the ball heavy. Jahmyr Gibbs, number 3, and number 1 in my heart. All right, so that takes me to number 2. You see it right there. Some people have my number 2 is their number 1. I can understand why. I really can. But my problem with putting Bijan Robinson at number 1 this year, last year finished running back number 4, respectively. Awesome. And I got him above Jahmyr. Excuse me. I don't like that timeshare with Tyler Algier. Algier is a very, very competent running back. Unless they feature Bijan Robinson more, his numbers are going to be similar. Numbers ain't bad. Not bad at all. Not bad at all. I mean, 17 games, but he had 280.7 fantasy points. That's 30 points less than Jahmyr, right? But he also ran the ball 54 times more than Jahmyr. So he had 304 rushing attempts, 1,456 yards, 14 rushing touchdowns. But here again is why we play the game. Bijan Robinson had 72 targets. 72. 61 receptions. 431 receiving yards. 1 rushing touchdown. Again, let's say that again. 71 targets, 61 receptions. 72 targets, 61 receptions. This is outrageous. But that's why this guy is sitting at almost the top of my rankings. Some people have been number 1 because I believe Michael Penix is going to use the hell out of Bijan. And this is a guy that could go number 1, but you got to think about it. Tyler Algier is still going to get that ball. Drake London is going to get the ball. That's all Penix throws to, unless it's the red zone. And he throws the ball to Kyle Pitts. So those 72 targets, I expect them to go down. I expect maybe 40, 50 targets, because those other 30 or 20 some odd targets are going to go to Kyle Pitts. Remember, Kyle Pitts wasn't getting targeted a lot with Kirk Cousins, which is, surprised me because that's what Kirk Cousins likes to do. He likes to throw to the tight end. But Michael Penix Jr. likes to throw to the tight end. And he showed it. Kyle Pitts averaged with like 5 to 6 targets a game when Penix was in. That's the only reason why I don't have Bijan Robinson as my number one running back, because I think, yes, he's going to run the ball. Tyler Algier eats some of that. But I think his target share is going to decrease by that much, almost cutting his receptions and targets in half. And he only had 280.7 fantasy points last year versus, Jahmyr Gibbs, who had 311, 318, whatever it was. Gibbs is the more explosive back. And that's why I said, I wish I was in that room with Detroit, because they had it right. But Bijan Robinson, definitely a number one running back, definitely. But number one overall, number two, not when you can get somebody that has more value. Number three, maybe. Number four, possibly. He don't go past 5, though. He doesn't go past 5 because of all the talent that he brings to the table. But again, you got to think about what's happening. Some people don't. Some people don't. All right. That leads me to number one. You see it. Now, last year he finished number one. That offensive line in Philadelphia, Saquon Barkley had, has not changed a lot. Not at all, really. I think, look, I know Kelsey's gone, right? But Saquon Barkley is a monster without a vicious offensive line. He now has a vicious offensive line. And Saquon Barkley was also kept in my league, 3rd round. Again, people making business decisions, right? So Saquon Barkley is now on the board. But this man played all but the last game of the season. He didn't want to break the record held by Eric Dickerson, because he was like, well, he didn't do it in the same amount of games as Eric or Juice, so he didn't want to play. But in 16 games, he had 322.3 fantasy points. He rushed the ball 345 times for 2,005 rushing yards. I think he could have got it. I really think he could have got it, right? 13 rushing touchdowns, 43 targets, 33 receptions, 278 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Here's the thing. There's a guy that likes to say, that's too many rushing attempts. He's going to be washed. Anybody that does 2,000 rushing yards the following year, they drop off greatly. Got it. Rushing yards fall a little bit. Got it. If 2,000 yards was easy and, everybody could do it every year, then it wouldn't be such a big deal. I don't expect Saquon to get 2,000 rushing yards. If he does, damn. But I expect him to touch that ball 300 plus times again. Absolutely. Will Shipley's a good running back, 2nd year out of Clemson, but he is not Saquon. Quadzilla is what they call him. Saquon Barkley is my number one fantasy running back. And I believe Saquon Barkley could be and should be the number one overall fantasy pick, if not Jamar Chase. It's my bold statement. The last time we've seen running backs go back to back as, a fantasy football number one, it's been a while, right? It's been a while because CMC didn't do it. But I believe in Saquon and that Eagles offensive line. I want you to understand something. It's not just Saquon Barkley's ability that I'm touting as why he should be the number one fantasy football player taken, or that he's the number one fantasy running back in the NFL. It's the fact that that offensive line is such a great offensive line in Philadelphia that they had Swift looking like he was a damn good running back. He is an okay running back. Saquon is leaps and bounds above him. So you combine Saquon Barkley with that offensive line in Philadelphia, and you repeat the same magic you just had. That makes Philly that much more dangerous. Quite honestly, I don't see why anyone would think that Barkley's going to have a great fall. Offensive line's good. He's healthy. They haven't changed anything. They're a dominant force. Saquon Barkley is going to be that dominant figure. That's what I got. All right, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank you all for tuning in. Have people popping in and popping out. Let me go over my top 15 one more time. At number 15, I have Chase Brown. Number 14, Kenneth Walker. Number 13, James Cook. Number 12, Bucky Irving. Number 11, Devin Achane. Number 10, Amari Hampton. Number 9, Ashton Genty. Number 8, Kyron Williams. Number 7, Jonathan Taylor. Number 6, Josh Jacobs. Number 5, CMC. Number 4, Derrick Henry. Number 3, Jahmyr Gibbs. Number 2, Bijan Robinson. And number 1, Saquon Barkley. You can't go wrong. In my opinion, you can't go wrong if you have any player from my 8 to 1 or 1 to 8, however you want to do it. The only worry I have is that Jonathan Taylor will be outplayed by Amari Hampton. Maybe Ashton Genty. Maybe even Bucky Irving. Maybe even James Cook. They might play better than Jonathan Taylor. But you can't ignore Jonathan Taylor's talent and the fact they're going to run the ball. But those targets in a PPR, you need those. And if you get 33 targets and only catch 18, that is not a good ratio. Again, I don't know if that's the fact that he can't catch or is a quarterback. I'm leaning quarterback. I appreciate you all. I truly do. I am me. He am I am him. I'm Mr. Fantasy Sports and Politics. And I appreciate you. So let me send y'all out of here on a good note. Remember, Saturday, I'm going to do defenses. Sunday, I'm finishing up with quarterbacks. And I'll break down my draft that I'm going to have here in a couple hours. So I appreciate you all. Have a good day. I'm out. Oh, man. Here we go.
Fantasy sports and politics.
Get ready to rumble!
You wanna talk smack? You in a right. right place. So take a step back before I get all up in your
Remember, because I don't remember. I remember every bit of this.
You're the dudes holding on the phone line. Your voice will be heard, sir.
Next caller, please.
Jerry's gonna get him.
Fantasy sports and politics. Fantasy sports and politics. Fantasy sports and politics. Fantasy sports and politics.
Listeners are asking questions about this week's games, not Jerry's personal beef. So what's your thought?